Well, hello and welcome everyone. WMLAR is excited to see you all here today for our Next Level Success webinar series. These are free educational opportunities designed to help members strengthen their businesses, tackle real-world challenges, and continue growing professionally. Toward the end of today's presentation, I will be sharing a brief survey link in the chat. We ask that you take a second, give us some feedback on this presentation and any other feedback that you might be able to give us toward future programming. We appreciate that in advance. Today's session is with Josh Hernandez from FBS. He will be walking us through the new Listing Manager Add Edit experience, which was recently redesigned to save you time and get your listings live faster than ever. Josh joined FBS in 2013 as a member of the customer success team, where he's enjoyed managing the Flexmls training team, keeping up to date with technology, and helping Flexmls users learn to use the system more efficiently. Since joining FBS, he has lived everywhere. He's lived in Mississippi, Louisiana, Washington, D.C., North Dakota, Texas, and Virginia. Although he was born and raised in Montana, Josh considers himself an honorary Southerner and enjoys attending anvil shoots, which I have no idea what that is, crawfish boils, and using the word y'all with impunity. Welcome to our friend with FBS, Josh Hernandez.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And I think my screen is up. So, as noted, I work for FBS, the creators of FlexMLS. So, I am not even a member of Mishrick. So, I'm going to be using some examples that I have that I hope are relevant for what we're doing today. And before we actually get into things, I am going to just cover or show what we'll talk about today. And as I noted, if you have questions, I will try to ask 4 questions between each section here when I change slides, as well as questions at the end as well, so everybody can get their questions answered. And I'm going to start today with just sort of a demonstration of the ideal workflow when you are adding a listing. We'll cover the layout of the new listing maintenance screen, photos. There's AI detectable features there. Public remarks can be AI generated, or it's started there and then finished by yourself. Publishing the listing, and then some frequently asked questions that I've gotten as far as this. And these are mostly related to mapping listings or that listing input or editing a listing's map location. So I'm going to start with the ideal workflow, because if you have the media for a listing, I do suggest working in a specific pattern when you're adding the listing. If not, you don't need to work in this pattern, but the ideal workflow looks something like this, where you click on your menu and click Add Listing, and you work through those first 4 or 5 screens where you enter in the address and you map it and you can populate the tax information. And I'll show that in an example. Then, if you have the photos, the media for the listing, I suggest going directly there, because when you add photos and you add more than 5 photos, you can generate potential details, listing details, and you can approve them or reject them. You don't need to do that, but it does save time when you're entering listing details. The photos will also look at, there's AI generated titles and captions there that you could use. So you can always use or choose not to use those, and I'll cover those as well. I think that's a great time saver when entering photos, to make sure you don't have to go in and rename the photos. You can just use generated ones or correct the generated ones if you would like. After adding the photos, then I go in and complete the rest of the listing details. And the reason I will go through the screen, kind of work top down, and then get to the listing remarks. If you like to use AI generated remarks or use that as a starting point, this looks at the listing details. It doesn't look at the listing photos when it's creating remarks for the listing, the public remarks. It's looking at the listing details you enter. So if you do use this, I recommend kind of doing it right before you're entering or publishing the listing and going to make it live, because you want as much detail with the actual field details as possible. So I'll again cover that here. and then the publish listing. So that's the workflow I recommend, and I'm going to work through it on screen right now. And it's going to come out, and let's come in here in FlexMLS. I'm going to go to my menu. I've got my add change section here. So I'm going to click add listing. And I did here as I was listening before we started the class, we've got some people here who are assistants who may enter listings on behalf of other people. So I've set my account up. I think I'll have an extra step here where I select the listing member. So you may not see step 2, but first on the add listing process, this is the listing entry assistant where it just walks me through 4 or 5 steps, depending on if you add listings on behalf of others. And the first step is, what property type are you using? I select, in this case, I'll just do a residential listing, and then I'll click continue in the lower right of that pop-up. Now here, if you don't add listings on behalf of other people, you will not see this step. If you do add listings on behalf of other people, you get this step here where it says select the listing member, and then you could type and search in whoever in your office you have permission to add listings for and pull them from that list. If you add listings for only yourself, this step is skipped because you'll automatically be included as the listing member. So if you don't see that step, that's why. And then I am going to click through here and find my address. And in the address search, I'm just going to come in, and I tested this one earlier. I am going to do an example at the end of class. What if you can't find the address? But I'm going to do 151 24 Briarwood. And you'll notice as I'm typing this in, it's using, I have GPS enabled on my computer, and it's searching in Virginia. I'm located just outside Washington, D.C. And so it's looking for nearby addresses. It's using Google Maps. So this would be pulling up listings that are in your location if you're doing this. And I point that out. If you're ever working remotely, maybe you're doing some listing maintenance or adding a listing and you're on vacation, you're thousands of miles away, you're going to get some weird results here. So just keep typing in what you're looking for. I'm going to say Briarwood Street in Grand Haven. So now I'm going to select that. As I'm typing that in, let me just back out from that a little bit. The more I type, the more narrow that's going to get. So when I see the address that looks like what I want, I'm just going to select that. And then I'm going to click on search. And what this does when I go and click on search is, number one, it's going out to your tax platform and it's seeing if it can find a listing with that address and that parcel number. You'll see already right here, county, and then it's already mapped it for me. If this map location is wrong, click on move pin location. And when I move pin location, now I can grab this and move it around. But to zoom out on my map, you'll see it tells me I tried to use the scroll wheel on my mouse and it wouldn't let me. So you can hold down your control key, command key for Mac users and scroll in and out. You can also click in this lower right icon in the corner, lower right corner of the map. And this lets me just zoom in and out of the map as well if you don't have a scroll wheel on the mouse. So when I have that, let's see, 15,124, I'm going to just drag that down right here. When I've got it exactly where I want it, I'm going to click on use this location. And from here, I'll just click continue. And on the final step, it goes out and asks, we found this tax record and with this parcel ID in the tax system, do you want to auto-populate some of that information? So the tax information that can be pulled from that record will be auto-populated on my listing. The other option here is it found a previous listing in the MLS. It tells me what the MLS number was, And it says, do you want to copy some of the details from that? It's not going to copy the public remarks or anything like that. But if I want to make sure this is the correct version of the listing, if you click on that, it just opens in a new tab. So I could say, oh, this actually was the previous version of that listing that was on the MLS previously. I do want to copy that listing information. Now, whenever you choose to copy that listing information, always verify that the listing information is still correct. And the reason I say this is because things can change on the listing. Maybe they entered listing information incorrectly, nobody caught it. So if you do copy a previous version of the listing, always make sure when we actually get into the listing information screen that that information is correct that was brought over. Now I'm going to check that just so we can see this, and I'll click on Finish. Now, with the listing entry assistant, I will pause and ask for questions on this, but I do know the most frequently asked question that I get with the listing entry assistant is, can I just skip that and come to this page and start entering in listing information? And the answer to that currently is no. So anytime you're adding a new listing, you do have to go through those 4 screens just to get the map location and address and see if you'd like to populate the tax information or a previous version of the listing. Now, I will pause here before we start covering the actual listing entry process on this screen, but are there any questions so far? All right. I am going to go ahead and move on to our next page here, which is going to be, if you have the media, I'm going to come and talk about this page here, but really the left-hand side is my navigation tab. And so if you have the media, I can populate even more listing information than is here already. And you'll see right now it tells me the listing requirements, 83% of the required fields for this listing, because I copied a previous listing and because I auto-populated tax information, 83% of the listing information is already complete here. So as I scroll down, I see there's 1 required field in tax and legal. Main property details, 11 required fields. Now, that's not how many fields there are total. That's just required fields, fields that must be completed before you make the listing live. But before I go into that, I'm actually going to move down to the bottom because I can get even more listing information in here potentially by adding my media. So if you have the photos, I come here first. I go to the photos on this page, and that red number 1 just tells me this is a residential listing. I need to add at least 1 required photo. But with the photos, I'm going to look at what they call Auto Assistant Plus. And this uses AI to potentially generate listing information based on the photos that you're adding. So the requirements for this, once I add 5 or more photos, it automatically runs. So I don't recommend doing this. If I've got 10 photos now and I'm going to put in 30 photos later, I would just add all of the photos at one time, because the AI generated details or potential details, it only runs once and it runs automatically whenever you add 5 or more photos to the listing, and you cannot run it multiple times. So it only runs once at this point in time. You'll have to agree to use the disclaimer before you could actually use any of the fields that it suggests. So you just have to say, I understand I'm using AI. I'm responsible for the accuracy. I need to review that. Review the details before adding them to the listing. If it suggests a detail that's different than what I used on my pre-populated when I copied the listing, they will potentially overwrite that existing listing detail information that I have already out here. So all of these things, if it suggests something that's different, it's going to overwrite that. And it can only be run once per listing. So I only do it when I have all of the photos that I want to add to the listing, or photos that I want to use to suggest details. And then when it runs also, it'll give me photo generated titles and captions that I can use on each photo. So to show you what that looks like, I just moved on my menu over on the left to the bottom section here under media, clicked on photos, and then I'll click add photos. And when I go in and add the photos, I'm just going to use some of my test photos here. Let's do these ones. And I'll click, I've selected 6, so it's automatically going to run for the AI. So as these photos are uploading, and again, this upload will only depend on the speed of your internet here. So gives me a little progress bar at the top. So if you're adding 50 photos at once, this may take a while before it finishes. I'm just adding 6 photos right now, so it went fairly quickly. But I also see when the photos have been added, the AI tools, and this popped out automatically. So it took probably about 30 seconds there after the photos finished listed are being added for this, and it was over it tucked into the corner. And while I was speaking, it just automatically popped out and said, AI features have been detected. If I want, I can preview those without clicking to the agreement right now. Here are the features it suggests, titles and captions, but I can't actually use them. You'll see they're all grayed out. First, I need to click on the AI agreement. So just letting me know these may be inaccurate. I'm responsible for reviewing the information. And just agreeing to it doesn't automatically add the details to the listing. It just says I can use that feature now. So I'll click accept. And now it starts me on features. And as I'm looking at the features, I see there's appliances. It suggests that I include and check the microwave, the range, the refrigerator. Exterior describes this as a craftsman. Now, I might say I disagree with some of this. Maybe my exterior material is not stone. So you can uncheck things here as well. It says it's got a fenced backyard. It's looking at that picture right here and detecting the fence in the backyard. So maybe it's partially fenced. Maybe I want to put in different information. But again, I want to check all of those before I click Save to Listing at the bottom. So if there's something that should not be included, I can take those and uncheck them. Now you'll also see search tag only. And so it has kitchen appliances, stainless steel appliances, kitchen appliances, range hood, gas range. These are fields that are not used by Mishrig. And so they're not searchable. They're search tags. If in the future Mishrig were to add those fields, then they would be updated to the listing and become searchable fields. But currently, they're not searchable fields. They're not going to appear on the listing anywhere. So I can uncheck or check these if I would like to. Exterior features, fire pit, that looks accurate, fencing, fenced. But these are not going to actually be fields in the MLS. They're just search tags only. They're tagged for now. If at any point in the future Mishrig decides to add those fields, then they'll be on the listing if I check those. But they're not currently going to be on the listing because those fields just don't exist right now. And if I want to go in and save these to the listing, I click on Save to Listing right at the bottom and tells me success. When I end up reloading some of these here, this is probably going to change just slightly if any of those were required fields. A lot of those were detail fields, so they weren't required. So it filled out the information, but they're not a required field, so it doesn't really change. You won't see that always change here. Now, the other feature here in my AI tools toolkit that's over on the right side, I'll click on that to bring it out. But what it will do is allow me, you'll see this one is called test backyard, test bathroom, test bedroom, test kitchen, which is not what I want the photos to be labeled. So if I click on AI tools, titles and captions is the second one over here. And this is just suggesting titles and captions. So I want to go through and read this because one thing that I've noticed is that it will look at the photo and pick out features in the photo, but it's probably going to put some features in that aren't going to be included with the listing. Like here, if I look at bedroom, vaulted ceiling, dark wood beams, arched multiple panes, crystal chandelier, unupholstered headboard. Well, that's probably not staying with the listing. I can go in and say, I'm just going to take that out when we add it, or I can decide not to use it entirely. So I'm going to use it, but I'm just making a note here. So if I said this is all wrong, just don't use that. Or if you don't like the caption that it used, you can uncheck that and it's not going to use that title or caption. So I'm just going to illustrate this. I'm going to take off patio so the patio won't be renamed. The photo won't be renamed as patio. Bedroom, I'm going to take out that explanation here or the details on that. And I'll click Save to Listing. It's going to overwrite that. And you'll see all of these titles get overwritten, except for the one that I suggested that it not do. I said, don't change this one, the patio. So you'll see that one stayed the same, but now this is bathroom, bedroom, kitchen. Bedroom, I said, don't use that description. Now I could have used the description and I could always go in. I'm just going to use illustrate on the bathroom. And I can come in here and I can say, well, these are not gold finished fixtures, they're brass. So you can always edit that information here as well. So you can populate it and then re-edit it or choose not to use that and then come in and name it whatever you want yourself or change that text. And now I've got those photos added. One other thing about photos, this hasn't changed from how the system worked previously, but the first photo that was in the list that I entered just automatically gets marked with that blue flag as my primary photo. I personally always like to make my primary photo the one that's first in the list. I'm not sure what MLS rules are for you, but I see most commonly the exterior shot. A lot of MLSs have rules in place for the primary photo here. So I just dragged and dropped to rearrange the photo, clicked on that blue flag to set that as the primary. Now, the order of the photos here, that doesn't really matter to the AI generated information that we had. So that runs automatically. It's not considering the order of the photos when it does that. It's just looking through the photos and using AI to detect those possible features. And of course, that's all optional. I didn't need to use the AI, but it can save a lot of entry listing information time when I am adding the listing. Now, I could go down and add my floor plans, documents, videos, virtual tours. That hasn't changed. Adding a floor plan doesn't do anything. There's no AI populating stuff from that. So that's just the same process as before. If I were to go in and add my floor plans, we have that here. Same with documents. That doesn't affect. The only AI features that auto detect when you add 5 or more are the photos here. So now that I've entered the photos, I'm going to go through and look a little bit more at the listing information and especially the public remarks. But are there any questions out there as far as let me go back to my previous tag here, the photo AI detection feature? All right, I will move to the next. And I'm going to go into the listing details. But as I move into the listing details here, we're going to focus on the public remarks. And I said, once you've done the photos, I've added some listing information with the photos. I've titled the caption or titled and captioned each photo here. I'm ready to go back into my listing details screen. So I just used my menu on the left to go back up to the top. And I always suggest working top down when you're entering in the listing information. I'm just going to start up here at tax and legal. And that's just because there are going to be fields there that display conditionally. And what I mean by that, maybe there's a field that says garage, yes, no. And when I say yes, all of a sudden a new field appears underneath that that says number of garage spaces. So there's a lot of that conditional logic. So I always suggest just working this screen top down. And whatever that information may be, um, as I'm coming down and filling out the information, um, again, I can move between sections, but as I scroll, you'll just notice that it's an infinite scroll over here. All of the listing fields are available. So I always just say, just move over to the right, start working your uh, screen top down. And I'm going to come, once you have a good majority of your listing information already completed with these fields, and I've got 85% of the required fields, so I'm just going to demonstrate now. I'm going to move down to my remarks field. And with my remarks, I'll come here and I'll see public remarks. And then to the right of that, it says generate with AI. And that is not looking at the photos. It is just looking at the detail information that I've filled out so far in all of these various options on the menu. So as I work this screen top down, this now will take all of that information and potentially generate listing remarks. You do not have to use this. And the way it works is I'm not going to describe here what I want it to say. I'm just going to let it run and do its thing. So if I'd like to use this, and again, it's 100% optional, you do not need to use the AI generated remarks, but I can click, I've read and agreed to the AI property description disclosure. And if I check that box now, you'll see this is clickable. When I click it, it looks at all the listing details and it generates, take a moment to do that, generates public remarks for me. Now, I can always come in here and start editing this. So if there's something on here that I didn't like, I could go in, change the words, remove it, cut and paste it somewhere else. But it's a good place to start for those public remarks. It's not going to be the be all end all, I don't think. But I could also say, well, I didn't really like this one. Let me try a new one. And what it will do is it will just write over whatever I have in here. And you'll see you can run this 5 times on a listing. So maybe I did it and I didn't have all the listing details in yet. I added more. I want to see what it comes up with. I can just click generate again. And again, it's not looking at the listing photos as it's generating the remarks. Instead, it is just looking at the listing details that I've filled in previously or below the remarks here. And so this is only available for the public remarks. It's not available for the agent-only remarks or the supplemental remarks or anything like that. You're not limited to what this says. I can edit it. I can add more information. And, or if I'd say, well, I'm just going to paste this in Chat GPT and tell it how to rewrite it, that's going to give you much more control using an outside AI rather than just having it generate right here. But just to show you how that works, the other thing on this screen is you've got a lot of characters available for your public remarks. If I add more to this, this is a great first start, but maybe I want to add an entire new paragraph. Just if you click on the lower right corner here, you can drag that out. I like to point that out just because it's hard for me to see what I'm typing in if I'm typing in more than these 200 characters here, 500, however many it used. But as I start typing in more, I can make that easier for me to read and keep track of what's been written in here. Agent only remarks. Now the supplemental remarks. In the old ad listing screens, this was a button that you clicked and said more. And so if I had more to put in than was allowable in this field for public remarks, this is up to 10,000 additional characters that I can use, and that's public remarks characters. So when you look at a listing report, there's a more, that's just going into the supplement, whatever overflow that I had from my initial public remarks goes into that listing supplement. Or when you go to print a listing and it says, do you want to print the listing supplement? That's the additional public remarks supplement. So anything that doesn't fit in that initial public remarks field will go in to those supplemental remarks, and there's up to 10,000 characters there. And when I am ready to publish the listing, actually, before I do that, are there questions on the AI generated public remarks? All right, y'all making this too easy for me.
Hey, Josh, I do have a
Yes,
question.
yes.
So in the previous listing input, there was a character count that would like count down so you could see. Is that something that we could add back in? I've had a few agents complain about that.
So 100%, and I agree with you. Our product team is working on that. It went away with the AI generated remarks. You will see that being brought back in though. So I don't have a time for release on that, but I do know that our product team is working to put that back in. So as you're typing in the public remarks, it'll tell you how many characters you've used and how many characters total are available. So that countdown will be coming back. I don't have a release date on that, but that is a great question. And unfortunately, my only answer right now is we have to wait until we see that back, but it is coming.
That's all right, as long as I can give them hope.
Yes, that's the first thing that, because I teach people how to use this and our support team, we talk all the time. And that's the first thing we requested. And that's the first thing I think agents request too. So that will be coming back. Any other questions? One thing that I didn't mention, excuse me, was this AI generated remarks is available for residential listings. I think it's available for like residential rental listings if you use those in Flexmls. But if I'm doing a land listing, for example, it will not, because it's not calibrated for land listings. At this point in time, you won't see the public remarks generate with AI button on land listings. There, it would just let you type in the remarks with no possibility of using AI to generate those inside Flexmls. So that's currently the remarks only available with those residential listings. Now, I'm going to move from here and just talk about saving the listing as incomplete or publishing the listing. So if I'm working on the listing and I'm not ready to publish it, maybe I'm waiting to get, I wanted to put my floor plans in, maybe I've got a video coming from my videographer, and before I make the listing live, I want to add those. So I just want to save this as incomplete and come back to it and add it when I have those later today or tomorrow or whenever it is. And that to save as incomplete is right at the bottom of the screen. You'll also notice it auto saves for me. So as I move from one section to another and I put in listing information, it auto saves for me as I'm updating listing information. The old ad listing screens auto saved every 2 minutes. This does this every time I'm making a change to the listing information, it auto updates for me. So that means if my computer crashes, I don't lose all of the work. It's auto saved for me as an incomplete listing. But to manually say, save this as an incomplete listing, come back to it later, I click save as incomplete, and it just lets me know when that last save was here, 10:38 a.m. So I can manually save as incomplete at any time. Once I've clicked on that, and if I leave, I can go to my incomplete listings here. I'm going to see that version, my last saved version that's available right here. So here we are, tells me when it was last saved. And I can always get in and preview the listing or get back in, continue to edit the listing here. So when I do that, oh, that's, let that load here. Got to load my actual listing details. There we go, 86% complete. A few other things when I am adding the listing. Number one, right at the top of here, if I'm right now looking at show all fields, you can just say show required fields or incomplete required fields. So I don't see all of the fields that I've already entered information in. I'm just going to say show me the required fields that I have yet to complete. So you have that option here. That used to be, I think, in the bottom right of the screen. So that's at, or no, it was at the top right of the screen. So here as well. There's also a search and fields option here. So as I'm looking at this and I say, well, I need to go in and check my garage information. Unless I know where that's at, this is a lot of scrolling and looking to find the word garage. Or if I'm down here and saying, is it in the main property details? Where is it at? Search field options. I'm just going to type in the word garage. And here it tells me that it occurs 10 times. So I can see that's not the garage I was looking for, but it'll take me right there. I think this is a great feature. Was not on the old ones, but I love the find because it makes it so much easier to edit a listing when you want to go in and just say, I needed garage fields was wrong, need to edit that, rather than saying, oh, where is it? General features here. I don't have to know where it's at on the screen. I just type in what I'm looking for. I'll type in the word fireplace, started typing fire, and I see fireplaces. Fireplace, yes. Total fireplaces, 1. It had 0 because I had auto-populated it previously. So change that here. And if I'm ready to make the listing live, talked about saving incomplete, preview the listing. I'll actually do that before we publish the listing here. Right at the top right of the screen, I've got my actions. Preview, I can see a preview version of the listing report here. So if I want to say, what would this look like right now? I can check one of the listing reports just like I was on the detailed screen on a search results screen and looking at this, the public or private version that I want to see. And you could always print this off, include a broker signature box, owner signature box if you want somebody to sign off on that. I'll just do that just so we see what that looks like. You don't need to do that. I could just look at the report here and click preview. And so here's what my listing information currently looks like. Excuse me, I checked the box for the broker signature box, seller signature box. So I put those here. You don't need to include that. That was just the option here to include those signature boxes. And so then I previewed that. But if I was ready, I could print this, I could email that, however I want to share that. So that's looking at the incomplete listing on the preview. I could also look at the printable input form. So when I click on this, it's like I'm going to the printable input forms from my menu where I can see the printable versions of the input forms. But now, let me zoom in on this. It's just filled out with the information that I've completed from FlexMLS. So it just has that input form completed with the information that I have. So if you needed to have that and print that out for any reason, I can just do that from preview, the input form. The delete listing option here, if I was doing this, maybe I'm just testing this out right now and I'm like, this is not an actual listing I'm going to add. Delete listing, it just removes this incomplete listing. Before I ever publish it, make it live or anything like that, I can just get rid of this incomplete listing, delete listing. And then lastly, publish the listing. If I'm ready to make the listing live, so it's on the MLS, other members in the MLS are going to be able to see it in their searches now, their contacts can see it. I just click on publish listing. And I'll click on that right now. It won't let me do that because I've got all of these required fields left to complete. So it will actually do something that's really nice. When I click publish listing, it tells me these are all of my errors. I've got these required fields that need to be completed. So if you missed just one, this just takes me there automatically. Lot dimensions. If I click fix this, it's going to jump to that place on the input form and I can put in my lot dimensions here. So it'll just take it there, highlight it for me, and then I can fill out those required fields. As always, you cannot actually publish the listing until you've completed all of the required fields. So that is kind of my workflow for coming through and adding listings. I'm going to back out from here, are there any general questions here? I've got a couple FAQs that I want to point out as well, but are there any general questions as we come in and are adding listings on what I just showed? All right, I'm going to go into my FAQ. I just have 2 of them, but I think I get these a lot. And number 1 is I've got a listing with an address that doesn't appear in the search bar. When I go into the add listing process and it makes me search on that Google search bar for the address and it's not pulling up. How do I just go in and enter the listing address manually? Because maybe it's a land listing and it's not a standard address that's going to pull up in a Google search. And the answer to this will exit the search bar, enter the information manually. So I just want to show you what this looks like. When I come in and I'm adding a listing, and I'm just going to select land listing here as an example and continue because I think this frequently happens, most frequently at least, with land. And I'll put in as myself as the listing member. And again, if you only add listings for yourself, that step doesn't even appear. You'll automatically be as the listing member. But here, as I'm typing an address in, sometimes it's not pulling up in that search bar. So whatever I happen to be typing in, Route 5, whatever it is, and it's not appearing in the search bar, just click outside of the search box so this drop down disappears. And here now you'll see can't find your address, click here. And when you do that, I'm going to be able to put in tax ID, select the county I'm looking for, and just manually type in the street name, the street direction, suffix if it's available, postal direction, and then city, state, zip. Those are all going to be related depending on what I select up here for my county. But that's how you get here. And it's not immediately obvious. Just going to click from this screen again. There's no option when I come here to see just enter the listing address manually. I have to click in that box. And then when I click out again, there I get the option to click here. Again, that's something that our product team is probably going to be changing. So you have that present from the start. So you don't have to take the extra click to do that. But if you're entering an address, it's not in the search bar. Just click on search here. And then you can come in and just enter the address manually. Leave that. And then I need to remap a listing. Where do I do that? And I showed you when we were entering the listing how I can go in and use the map and the tools on the map to do that. But sometimes people are in a rush or you didn't pay attention, and either it's a live listing that needs to be remapped, or it's still an incomplete listing, but I went through that mapping phase. How do I go in and remap the listing so it's correct? So here I'm going to go into my incomplete listings. I've got one mapped that I did earlier today that's mapped in the totally wrong location. So this one, 108 4th Street, Ludington, Michigan. I'm going to click on that and I'll just click to edit the listing. So now I'm on the change listing page. Now, whether this listing is live or it's incomplete like this, the process is going to be the same. It's going to be found under the address. And when I come here, you'll see this pop up in a moment. You'll say, Josh told me that I could update the map by clicking on address, but you won't see the map here. And so here I can say update the map location, reset the geocode. And I'm going to say update map location. So it brings up my map. And I'm going to zoom out on my map just so we can see how off this address is. I've got this mapped way wrong. And so in order to zoom out, you can use your control and use the scroll wheel on your mouse, or just tap in the lower right corner on the map tools here. I'm going to zoom out. You'll see this is nowhere near where it should be. It should be way over here somewhere. So Now I can manually relocate on the map by just moving the map around here, zooming in and click this location. But I still have the option to find the address via Google Maps and see if Google Maps can get me close at least. And so I'm just going to type in 108. And again, it's looking for nearby listings to where I actually live. So you're seeing that in Arlington, 4th Street, and Ludington, Michigan here. So I'm going to choose that one. And then I'll say, now that I've selected that, map that location. Now this is probably much closer. I'm going to go to my tools over here. I can zoom out. I can see, oh, I'm actually in Ludington, so that makes sense. As I zoom in here, I can move this around. I want that push pin right on 108, and then I'll click use this location. Once I do that, the map disappears off the screen again, so it's not taking up screen space. But again, if I need to go in and change that map location, I just say, go to my address right here, already now at my address, update the map location, and then I can either manually move my map around or start using that Google address search. Like you saw how mine was way off. I wouldn't want to try to move the map and try to find that. I'm going to try to get as close as possible first before I start zooming in on the map and then repositioning things. And when I've got it where I want it, I just click use this location. And again, that map disappears from the screen. So those are some of the most common questions I think I've been seeing as far as the new listing input screens are concerned, because that's a little bit different than what that looked like and what the process was previously. I am at time right now that I want to go ahead and take questions. So are there any additional questions for what I've shown or something that I didn't cover here with the new ad listing screens?
Well, great job, Josh. Honestly, I think it's fascinating how the new photos can really build out the entire system for you. We've gotten a couple questions as it relates to accidentally publishing when they're actually working on photos. So just trying to make people slow down a little bit, because obviously once it publishes, we can't bring that back, whether that's going from a coming soon status, but oops, I accidentally took it active, can't go back to that coming soon status. So I think while there's definitely efficiencies, there's definitely opportunities to go too fast. Maybe if you could take a second, and maybe I missed it, to speak to how this new system is making it easier on the mobile device, because I found that accidentally and I thought it was poof, mind blowing.
Yes. So I don't have access from my app because I'm a super user. So I do want to point out everything that I've been doing here on the full listing web or the full website for adding listings, or even if I go in to change a listing and do a price change, status change, the full ad edit is now available in mobile. And I'm going to go to the mobile website rather than my app because I will be able to do it from the mobile website. Now this looks, I'm just going to come over here and bring this up. This will look very similar to your app. So if you have an Android or iPhone device, your screen will look very much like mine does on screen right now. The big difference is my menu's at the top of the screen because I'm on the mobile website. If you're on the app, you'll have that menu, but it's at the bottom of the screen. That's really the only difference. If you're looking at this and wondering, well, why is Josh's different than my app? To get to my listings on iOS, it's going to be on the 3 lines. It'll be more on iOS at the bottom of the screen. On mobile web and Android, you'll just click on your initials and you'll get to the My Listings screen. This is where I'm going to be able to go in and edit my listings. Now, I don't have a listing to edit, so I'm just going to show you on an incomplete listing. So I'm going to say incomplete listings. When I go to my incomplete listings, I'm going to see same thing that I had here to be able to select. Now, if I went to my listings, I would see all of my listings here on a search screen and I can select the one I want to edit. I'm going to come in here and I can edit this. I'll just click on edit. When you come to this page, it's mobile friendly. And by that, I mean, I can just jump anywhere I want on the listing menu. So if I want to go in and say, oh, there was a spelling mistake in my public remarks, I can jump down to that section. I can edit everything. And again, you'll be able to drag and drop that with your fingers because you're on a mobile screen, even harder to see something like remarks. But I'm going to be able to go in and fully edit any field on my listing. And you also have, I really like this. I think it's, this search widget. I want to double check. There's another search widget on the search screen now. This is at the top of the screen, and you'll see it's always at the top of the screen when I'm editing a listing on mobile, and I can type in what I want to edit here. And I'm going to go back to fireplace. I just typed in the word fireplace. Yes, maybe there were actually 2 there, so I just went in here. And that search just goes through, looks at all of the fields there, whether they've got data in them or not. The one thing that the search will not find, if there is a field that's hidden. So I'm going to see, oh no, this one doesn't have conditional logic by it. So sometimes there are fields that you don't see until you answer yes to one field or put in a specific answer. The find the feature will not show any of those fields that are not present on the screen. It might find that first one if fireplaces, for example, said fireplace yes, the number of fireplaces pops up, but it's not going to find anything that's not on the screen. It's just looking for those things that are on the screen. And again, I got there by going, remember, your menu will be at the bottom of the screen, but I'm just going to back out from here. See if I can back out right here. Your menu's at the bottom of the screen, but I went to the icon at the far right. It'll be the far right bottom for you. And you can go to My Listings if you're on iOS, Change Listing. The Change Listing screen looks very much like the incomplete listing screen, except I'm going to see my change options when I'm just going to go and edit this one. I'm going to see those change options, change status, change price. Those will be available from here on that change listing screen. So you will have that available. I think this is a fantastic feature for mobile because you're not always in front of a computer. And 2, I think the most useful feature if I'm editing listing information on mobile is once I load the listing information, it doesn't matter where I'm at. You want to find just a specific field. It's going to be that search bar at the top of the screen because when I want to edit something, this is a lot to scroll through. Just type in what you're looking for in that search bar and you can jump there immediately. I'm just going to say below. I typed in the word below. Here's my below grade finished square footage, unfinished. There it is. Much easier to find the fields that way to edit them than trying to scroll through and find them.
Yeah, so awesome. I love it so much. It's way more user friendly, whether I didn't realize that we could even look at it that way. But with the app, so much more functional than it used to be. Like, oh, thank you, Flex, for that. Amanda posted in the chat that there's a service ticket pending. Photos via the app are freezing folks up. So Flex is working on that. Amanda, thank you for that. Jane mentioned that she made some edits to a new listing on the remarks. Wanted to show the sellers the changes, couldn't find the reports. Jane, are you talking about doing that in the app or were you on a computer? Because the reports should still be there if you use like the Mishrick detailed report or the full report or the one-page report. Those should all be there. So can you elaborate a little bit on that question? Unless Josh, you have more insights on that?
I don't have any insights on that.
Computer marketing and supplemental. Let's take a little peek.
Yeah, as I update anything here, it should save real time in FlexMLS. So I'm able to see that on my search results screen and pull up. So if I went in and edited the remarks or supplement, should be displaying here my public remarks, my supplement. That should update real time in a situation like that where it didn't appear to pull over immediately. Obviously, if you're talking to somebody and doing it while talking to them, you don't have time, but reaching out to support so they can see why that didn't happen. I will also say if I make a change on here and I'm looking at the listing on the app, there is probably a few minute delay before I will see that change in public remarks feed over to the app because that feeds out via an API feed. So if I'm make a change on the full website and I'm looking at the listing details on mobile, I might need to refresh those listing details in a few moments before I see those pull over, just because there can be a lag when it feeds out via the API.
Fantastic. Did that help, Jane? How do I send the seller? How do we send to the seller to show them both fields updated without the box in the middle screenshot? Are you printing the reports that are on there, the full page? You could do a public report, you could do a private report. Jane, go ahead and unmute if that's easier.
So prior to publish, you've got all the reports, and I believe there's one that will show entirely with the supplement. So what report will show my seller that I can send over to them? Here you go. Here's the updates in the market, public marketing. Here's the updates in the supplemental. I could not find it. And once we go public, or once we publish, all those preview reports that I would send them, they're gone, right? So show me. Yeah, I went through like all of them. Because the supplemental is for certain websites that will allow the additional characters.
So I have not tested this to see how interactive these reports are. And I don't have an incomplete listing. Let me just type something in the supplement on this incomplete listing here, just to see. And here's what we were talking about before. You'll see 22 characters out of 10,000 used. That will be coming to the public remarks at the top. You click save as incomplete. And I don't know. That's why I'm testing it on screen here and why I always refer people to support when you run into something specific like this. But I'm just going to look at the report and see if it's got public remarks as needed. So it does not look like that has the link. And again, I don't know if this is a known issue, if there's something out here for it. So I'm just going to make a note to myself. Because
it does say include supplemental text down there, Josh. There's a button on that. When you're on the full report.
Yeah, let me come back up. Full report.
Include supplemental text.
Supplemental text. Sorry, I missed that.
I did too.
Thank you.
Yep.
And now
I still don't see it. Oh, way down there.
So because this is a printable form and it's not interactive, I'm not, let me change my screen size so everybody can see this. The supplemental remarks are going to be right at the very bottom. So as I make a change on my public remarks, I made the change here. They should be able to see that real time. I can send this to them. The supplemental remarks, since that prints separately, it's going to be actually just at the very bottom. So you won't see the interactive more link, but you will see that down here. And the key to that was, as I'm on the full report, inclusions right underneath the signature boxes, include that supplemental text. So that's that supplement field. That's where that checkbox is going to be. So thank you very much for helping me through with this, because I've learned something today as well.
Oh, goodness. I learn something new every time you and I talk, Josh, or I hear you present. So go team, go. Awesome. I love it. Any other questions from friends out there? Like I said, we did record this. This is going to be going on our blog and our YouTube. So look for that to come out in your weekly memo to our friends with other associations. If you want a recording of it, just send me an email and I'll just send you the link when we get it. But you are welcome to share that with your associations too. That's kind of why Josh got on here to do it, because I know that when the change happened, my phone was ringing off the hook. I'm sure yours was as well. And we're all like, oh my God, what is going on? So absolutely, go team, go. We're all in this together. Josh, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for going through all of this. If there's no other questions, then we will call it a day and see you all hopefully at our September 17th inaugural Next Level Summit in Muskegon.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Awesome. Good to see you. Thank you again. Have a great day, everyone.